This cold, hard concrete was never meant to nurture life. But what if it could? I've surrounded myself with plants, but yet there's always been a barrier. That got me thinking, what if I could blend the organic and the non-organic to create concrete that's living and breathing? But there's one big problem. I'm not about to turn my living room into a construction site. How did I do it? Here's the scoop. The concept of terraforming. This is a process of transforming a harsh or uninhabitable environment into one more suitable for life. It involves modifying the atmosphere, the surface, or even the climate to make it capable of supporting living organisms. And that is what drove the concept of this idea. In this process, a lot of my direction was guided into creating a tower of concrete that can sustain life, that extends upwards with a central groove. I decided to taper the top of the concrete back in on itself to create a very steep slope where all the plants will be attaching. It's important to know that a lot of the moisture and water will be running down this groove. Then, in order to create this into its own ecosystem, we needed to create an atmosphere. So we're going to finalize this project by enclosing this entire space or structure with a glass box. So what did I do? I headed down to my local hardware store and I got them to cut these pieces to size. I quickly headed home and tried to assemble the pieces. A bunch of drilling and some screws later, we finally have our mold that we'll be putting the concrete in. It's important to note that this is the general form, and from this we're going to make the negative groove using a thin piece of timber. And it's time to pour the concrete. The concrete mix that I'm using today is a lightweight concrete mix that uses perlite instead of heavy or big aggregate. This is going to create a much lighter weight concrete and something that is more manageable to use. The perlite also does help with some sort of water retention. After pouring in the concrete, I gently tap down the mold to get rid of any air bubbles as much as possible. We did face a bit of issues here, not to worry. I had additional clamps, clamped the mold down, and we were set to wait 1 week. Finally, it is time to remove the concrete mold and expose the concrete to the world. While taking off the mold, I'm seeing a lot of good signs. Some of the perlite pieces are sticking out and it's creating quite a cool look. Now finally you can get a sense of the structure and how it might be working. Except there's one big problem. I misjudged the size of this groove. So there's only one thing to do. I took the hammer and chisel and I sort of unveiled this area, making it a lot larger so that the plants could attach to them. Because guess what? I'm using only epiphytic plants and a lot of these have a bit of a bigger root system than I initially thought. The structure is ready and it is now time to create this organic masterpiece that we've been wanting to create. I've ordered all the plants and they're in. The key to this whole structure is that I'm using miniature orchids. I think miniature orchids are an underrated plant in the hobby. And once you get the hang of them and start to understand how to take care of them properly, they're really easy to take care of. And for me, they're such tiny wonders and their little flowers are quite a joy to see. One thing to note that these are all epiphytic plants, making this whole system work a lot easier. And they all originate from a similar climate, meaning that they can all sustain themselves well within this sealed terrarium. I'm arranging them along the groove to create a bit of hierarchy and interplay between all the orchids. We have the Restrepia Landsbergii, the Masdevallia Schmidt-Mammii, the Barbosella cucullata, the Orangus mastocidii, the Orangus punctata, the Orangus Liliana Rossi, Now that these orchids have been placed in a fitting manner, it is time to do the final step, creating the humidity dome that they'll be in. I had the glass pre-cut and I followed a design that I sort of liked that looks like the entire structure is floating. There is a company that make a very similar looking terrarium and I used their idea as precedent when making my glass dome. Look, siliconing glass is a lot harder than it looks. Unfortunately, it did not turn out so neat, But luckily for me, I had access to these aluminium bead strips that I could add to the edges to create a very finished, refined look and hide away the unneatness of the box. Guys, it's been now 2 weeks since we've set up this system and there is a lot of signs of life. Have a look at this. This amazing Restrepia muscifera has just come into bloom and it is truly a wonder. There is another orchid within this thing that I think by the time I'm editing this video, it would have bloomed. I'm gonna add in a picture here. This is so special. The orchids are slowly adapting to their new environment and are really taking so well to the high humidity levels that this glass dome or box gives them. What's nice is a lot of these orchids are in a climate that's a bit colder, and that's very similar to the climate that I'm in. So we're going into spring now and it is still a little bit chilly, but these plants are thriving absolutely amazingly inside this box, and I cannot wait to continue seeing this structure develop. So there you have it, guys, a concrete that is living and breathing. If you like this video, please drop a like and comment down below. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing and joining the architecture of plants.